Hey guys. All right. So this week is the last part of Unit 7. I know this is drug on, but remember Part 1's memory, Part 2 is cognition, and Part 3 is going to be about intelligence. So the main thing that we are going to focus on is over here in red, so it stands out and grabs your attention. The ultimate question for intelligence is intelligence one thing or is it multiple? And that is the overall question for this unit that you have to remember. Are we generally intelligent, or do we have areas of intelligence and then areas where we are lacking? Um, we don't have an answer to this. We have multiple psychologists who have specific theories that they believe in. We're going to talk about that. That's the overarching question for this unit. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over here so it's a little bit bigger, and let's talk about this. All right, so bottom line, what is intelligence? The definition of intelligence is your ability to learn from experience, solve problems, and use knowledge to adapt to new situations. It's not necessarily your SAT score or your IQ score, but intelligence is ranked by your ability to learn from experience. We're going to talk about something called savant syndrome. This is misused a lot. People don't use this correctly when they refer to savants, but a savant is someone who would score low on an intelligence test, meaning they would have an IQ score that would fall at or close to the legal definition of mental retardation. But yet there's an extreme area of brilliance, and we're going to give specific examples of those savants. Rain Man is always the biggest example, and if you've never seen the movie Rain Man, while you're at home with nothing to do, you should watch it. Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise, fabulous movie. We have intelligence testing that we use, and everyone seems to brag about their IQ score and what that means, and we're going to talk about how you get an IQ score. But bottom line, if you are intelligent, you have what your culture deems are the attributes for success. So in this picture over here, this would be a local doctor in a South American village that's still rural, something that still has most of its native roots, not westernized. And this doctor or medicine man is deemed the smartest person in that village. But if you took him and dropped him off at the Mayo Clinic here in the United States, it wouldn't add up. Like, he would not be considered the most intelligent person at the Mayo Clinic. So it all is, based off of surrounding and based off of culture for how intelligent we deem someone. So the people that we're going to talk about to answer this question, are we generally intelligent or do we have areas of intelligence? The first one is Spearman, and Spearman came up with what was called the G factor, and that is general intelligence. The G stands for general. Okay? The G factor is the concept that Spearman believed that we are either generally intelligent or generally not. Like, you're either smart or you're not, which I support in some ways, but I support the other theory too. Normally, even though you guys have areas that like you're stronger with, like as an AP student, some of you are better in math and some of you are better in English, but at the end of the day, bottom line, you're still above par in all of those subjects, if that makes sense. Factor analysis, this was one of your note card terms, is a statistical procedure that identifies clusters of related items on a test. So this will point out, like on the SAT does this, like if you do well with vocabulary, then you also do well with paragraph comprehension, and it pulls out on a test the areas that you are the strongest in. Okay, Thurston is the opposite of Spearman. Thurston said that we don't just have one intelligence score, that there are 7 factors to intelligence. So he supports the argument that we have areas of intelligence. Spearman supports the argument that we just have one theory, like you're either intelligent or you're not. Okay. More famous than Thurston, but Thurston and Gardner go together, is Gardner. Gardner came up with the idea that there are 8 intelligences. You probably recognize them. And before I click though, when you're reading, hopefully you've read, this dude can play like 100-something people of checkers at the same time and win every single match. It's crazy. One of those things that's like an area of brilliance for this man. Here are your 8 theories of intelligence. You've probably taken like a test before. This is kind of like a personality test where it shows you where your area of brilliance is. Linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, spatial, bodily, kinesthetic, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and a naturalist. And it gives you the best example of each of those, showing you that people can have areas of high intelligence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're overall intelligent. With it goes. Now, Einstein, like, yes, genius, but if you go down and you look at other ones, like Martha Graham wouldn't be considered someone who was necessarily highly intelligent, but yet she's one of the most famous dancers ever. So she had bodily kinesthetic intelligence, but not necessarily, math intelligence kind of thing. Another person that goes with our people that we talked about. So we've got Thurston is multiple intelligence, Gardner is multiple intelligence, and last but not least, Sternberg. Sternberg is also our third multiple intelligence person. And he said it's not 7, it's not 8, there's 3. There's only 3 kinds of intelligence. You're either analytical, you're creative, or you're practical. And hopefully you're someone with all 3, but not necessarily. And analytical would be someone who has the ability to do problem solving, someone who's very academic. Creative is somebody who's very creative. They can come up with new ideas that no one's thought of yet. And then practical intelligence is what we call street smarts. So this little child who's, less than 12 years old and selling candy on the streets, he's not going to, and not in school, he's not going to grow up with analytical intelligence, but he's going to grow up with practical intelligence. So pointing out that intelligence is not necessarily one general concept. It can be specific things. And you may know someone like this. My best friend since, like 3rd grade, was our salutatorian. She's brilliant. She's now a CRNA, which means she's a nurse anesthetist. She makes a ton of money. So super smart. She is a ditz, like a total ditz. We joke with her all the time about her complete lack of common sense. So it kind of supports this 100%. Like, she's analytical and she's creative, but she does not have practical intelligence whatsoever. But she's insanely book smart. So there's your 2 theories. Once again, I don't know why we have to argue between the 2 of them, because quite frankly, I think both of them are correct. But this is in your book. It gives you the 4 people that we talked about and the considerations about them. Okay. Another area of intelligence is emotional intelligence, and this is very true and very important. Emotional intelligence is your ability to read other people. People who have high emotional intelligence succeed better in careers, marriage, and parenting. Duh. Because in your career, you have to interact with other people, and if you can read other people, read the room, and interact with other people, that makes them want to keep interacting with you, then you're going to do better. Same thing with marriage, same thing with parenting. You're going to have a lot of friends. The people with high emotional intelligence are the people who make great sales positions, because people want to interact with you and want to do what you tell them and want to do what you say. Okay? Cult leaders also have high emotional intelligence. Going with looking at intelligence and how we measure it, unfortunately, the bigger the brain is not the smarter you are. I hate to break it to you, that's not what that means. But we have done things throughout psychology where we've studied people's brains. Einstein's brain was studied after he died. We were trying to figure out, since if we take really, really smart people, is there anything that correlates between these brains, like the size of lobes, the size of the brain, whatever. And unfortunately, that's not really the case. But we have studied neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to fix itself. And then gray matter versus white matter does matter, in intelligence. We talked about this in development, where if you're not forming gray matter, that's a problem, because gray matter is where your intelligence capability will ultimately lie. Okay, so gray matter is very important for you to develop as a child. Perceptual speed and neurological speed is also something that's measured. We're measuring intelligence. So for example, we are shown like this image. You're shown this one first, and you're flashed for like just a second. And then this image pops up, and you are asked which one had the longer side, the left or the right. People with higher intelligence scores can get this question correct. People with lower intelligence scores cannot. So your neurological speed, your ability to see something and have it resonate quickly, matches with intelligence, at least on an IQ score capability. All right, so how do we assess intelligence? How do we figure out what our IQ score is? Where did we get IQ tests in the first place? People like to brag about what their IQ score is. How did that come up in the first place? Well, we had a guy originally who was named Francis Galton, and he came up with something about reaction time, which is like what you just saw with the stimulus masking. Sensory acuity, muscular power, and body proportions. I don't think I want someone judging my body proportions with my intelligence capability, but this was in our first intelligence testing by Francis Galton. This we do not use anymore. We use more of what we are going to talk about next, which is a guy named Alfred Binet. So hopefully my juniors know about this because you are in U.S. history and you know about this. But remember, school was not compulsory, like for a very, very long time. It's only been in the last 100 years that kids have been made to go to school because we figured out, hey, we want smart people in our society, so let's force people to go to school. So when France did compulsory education, they hired Alfred Binet to come up with a test to say, okay, now that we're mandating kids to be in school, we need to figure out where kids are, because now that we've made this mandate, we have 6-year-olds that are starting school for the first time, but we have 12-year-olds that are starting school for the first time, and we need to know how to group these kids and how to teach them. So he was asked to come up with a test to figure out what a child's mental age was. So you have a chronological age and you have a mental age. Your chronological age is your age, like you are 16 years old, 15 years old, 17 years old. That's your chronological age. That is how old you are for every year you've been alive. Your mental age, though, can be different than your chronological age. For you guys, because you're AP students, I would assume, hopefully I'm right, I would assume your mental age is above your chronological age, meaning like you've been above grade level your whole life. For people, that's not the case for everybody. Some people, their mental age is below their chronological age. And we hear this today when we hear things like, oh, they're in 5th grade, but they're reading on a 3rd grade reading level. Well, that means their mental age is below what their chronological age is. You should have an IQ score of 100 or above. If you have an IQ score of 100, that means your chronological age and your mental age are the same. That's what that means. If you have an IQ score of 100, your chronological age and your mental age are the same. And I'll show you how we get that formula in just a minute. Alfred Binet thought his work was very successful, but he was very scared that his test was going to be used to label children, meaning they were going to take this test one time and then have this label on them for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, he was correct. That's exactly what happened. Kids were labeled, whether they were intelligent or not, based off of one test. And he was very upset then that he contributed to that factor. We know Alfred Binet's test today as the Stanford Binet test. And a lot of you have taken this, whether you remember it or not. You take it when you're younger. You can't take it at my age, because when you're 33, it's not like I'm going to come up with a mental age that's different than my chronological age. So you have to do this when children are young. And then their IQ score, their intelligent quotient, is where you put the mental age on top, chronological age on the bottom, and then you times it by 100. So once again, a 100 is an average score. If you are 9 and you have a mental age of 9, 9 divided by 9 is 1, and then times 100 is 100. Okay, let's do another fun example. We'll even pull up the handy dandy calculator so you guys can see this. So let's say you are an 8-year-old and you are tested and you have the mental age of a 10-year-old. So mental age goes on top. 10 divided by 8 equals 1.25 times 100, which means you have an IQ score of 125, well above 100, which would mean that you are highly intelligent. Okay, so that's how we do that. We're going to talk about the difference between achievement test and aptitude test. So that's our intelligence test, Stanford Binet. We're going to talk about another one in just a minute called the Welschler. But our IQ test, achievement test, or aptitude test? That is your question. IQ tests are aptitude tests. An achievement test is the AP exam. Did you achieve the learning you were supposed to achieve? Yes or no. It tests your knowledge. An aptitude test is a predictive test. It predicts your ability to do something. So that's an IQ test, that's the SAT, that's the ACT. You can prepare for them, but you can't study them all together. We'll pause for part two.